Today we're checking out the LEGO Speed Champions 2021 Ford GT Heritage Edition and Ford Bronco R. So glad to see you again. I know I've been gone for a little while, but I am back and I'm coming at you with the 2021 LEGO Speed Champions. So today we are checking out the LEGO, of course, Speed Champions, Ford GT Heritage Edition, and Ford Bronco R. I am so excited for this kit. As soon as I heard it was coming out, I knew I had to get it. It is $50 US, and so far I think it's worth it just looking at the box. Obviously today we'll figure out if it really is. And you can see the pictures of the real cars here and here, and I think that Ford GT looks absolutely awesome. I am a little bummed it's not the Ken Miles or Bruce McLaren version of the GT Heritage Edition, but I do think that the Gulf paint scheme does look really cool, and the Ford Bronco R, of course, also looks very awesome, and I cannot wait to get into this thing. So without further ado, let's get into the unboxing. Getting into the box, LEGO did give us thumb tabs. However, I'm going to use a trusty butter knife because I don't want to mess up this awesome box. So to get it out, you just kind of stick the knife in there where the thumb tabs are, and you just kind of move it around, and that just kind of releases all the glue. And you should be able to get through it just like that without damaging anything. And then you kind of get your fingernails in there, and then you can kind of use this as a handle to get it off of those side tabs. Or you could of course use the butter knife on those side tabs as well, but I didn't. So in the box we'll find bag of parts number 4. That looks like our Ford GT. Bag of parts number 1 looks like stuff for our Bronco R. Bag of parts number 2. This one is bag of parts number 5. We have our sticker sheet for our Ford GT Heritage Edition. We have our instruction manual for our Ford GT. We have our sticker sheet for our Ford Bronco R. A lot more than I expected, but looks cool. And we have our instruction book for our Ford Bronco R. Oh, more stuff. We also have bag of parts number 3, of course, and that'll do it. So with that said, let's get into the build. Now that these piles of parts are in the shape of cars, these things are awesome. The Ford GT definitely surprised me on how it looks. I think it looks a lot better in person than I thought it would, and the Bronco is definitely bigger than I thought it would be. You can see just the size difference, and this is very similar in size to probably the F8 Tributo from the previous wave of Speed Champions, and you can just see how big this thing is, and I love it. So we'll get into the individual little car reviews right now. Looking closer at this beautiful Ford GT, you can see that the blue is the first thing that you notice, and I think the blue is just a little bit off. You may know that the actual Gulf Ford GT40s were a little bit more powder blue, just a little bit lighter, a lot more like what you see on the roof, and in person this model is a little more green, and I just think that the color is a little off. But as far as the colors that LEGO has at their disposal, I think that this is the best one they could have chosen. Now, aside from that, you can see that the orange is the next thing you notice, and this is a very colorful car, and I like that about it. And you can see that the front end has this nice sticker detail that makes it look like an intake. Now, one funny thing I think of the front end is you can actually kind of open it up a little bit, and that's just a side effect of having the angle of the front just right. There's a little hinge right here, and so that makes it so that you can open it, and it just looks like it has a giant gaping mouth, and you can make your Ford GT eat traffic cones. So the headlights are right above that, and you can see that they are a little bit shiny, and those are prints, so I was very glad I didn't have to line up a sticker on these little curved pieces, and I just really like how that looks. And I know a lot of people have had little print difficulties with the little quarter pieces here, the quarter round pieces, and those have a little misalignment in the print. However, I think mine look pretty good. These two parts are stickers, and those carry the orange stripe up the car onto the roof, which is completely printed up here, and that has another sticker here for the stripe. And then you get to the rear window, which is what I think is probably the biggest downside to this whole model, but even then, it's just not that big. But you can see that there is a tiny bit of a gap right there, and I think really the biggest downside of this model is just the fact that there's gaps where there kind of shouldn't be, and there aren't gaps where there kind of should be. So here you can see that there is a gap, and one of the famous things of the what originally was, I believe, the 2016 Ford GT was the little flying buttresses here, and those are kind of little fins that direct air through here and kind of just go out the back there, and it looks super cool on the real car. And I do think that the little effort they gave here looks really good on the Lego model, but you can see that there isn't really an intake there. It just kind of closes off with some pieces, and then it closes off with more pieces, and then part of the intake is actually created by some black sticker there, and I don't think that that's super awesome, although with the parts at Lego's disposal, I think that this is really good, and the engine detail is also very good. I really like that you can actually see into that with the window pieces, and the little side part is just a side effect of having that ability to see in there. So at the back you can see that we do have our little exhaust pipes, which are stickers, as opposed to the model we got previously, which was a 6-stud wide Ford GT, and that was the Le Mans car, and that actually had a physical piece with a couple little holes in it, but I think having the cheese slope is a much better option and gives it a better angle. The taillights also look really good, and the little splitter down here I think looks very good. You've got your little license plate there and a little vent detail at the bottom. And I think that this car overall just looks really nice, and I especially like these little intake holes, or I should say outtake holes, as the air would go in through here and up out of these vents. And I think that that's a very nice touch, that those really are little holes that you can actually stick your finger in, and those are really nice. In the inside, we do have a little bit of detail in there. You got a offset steering wheel, which is a thing that happens to be in all of the 2021 Speed Champions cars so far, and I really don't like it just because it's offset and it drives me crazy, but I guess it's okay. And the interior here you can actually see has some button details with a, what I assume is a start stop button at the top, and you can actually see that we do have a couple of headrests, and that is probably the biggest upside to me with the 8-stud wide cars, other than just looking right with the width of the car. You can actually have interior detail and 2 characters in the car at once, and I think that's great because it's a lot more realistic. So with that said, let's get on to our Ford Bronco R. This is the Ford Bronco R, and I think it looks amazing. The front of it has a great detail that I really like that is actually on the real truck, and that is that the R in Bronco is red. You can see that it is there on the little grill piece, and I really like that because it signifies that this is indeed the Ford Bronco R, not just a normal Bronco, in case you couldn't tell by the tires hanging out the back. Now, the little skid plate / part of the frame on the front is represented by this blue bar piece, and you can see that there is a little tiny light bar there. There's one actually underneath the roof, and there's actually a bunch of tiny little lights. Well, there's representing lights. They're little clear pieces inside the grille. I think that looks amazing, and it actually represents the real truck, I think, very well. You also have some nice red striping on the top around this nice bump that I assume is for the engine in the actual truck, and you do have these little gray pieces which are actually held on by these very interesting little pieces that are actually underneath that, and I have never seen those little pieces. It's kind of hard to get off, so I'm not going to take it off, but they are very weird little pieces. Now the tires, I think, are one of the highlights of this truck. They are huge, they are proper, and I think it really goes with the whole thing that is the Bronco R. And I really like how the tires have the smaller Speed Champions wheels, and I think that makes the tires look even bigger. And you also have the little red line in there, which I think helps the whole design or the paint scheme of this whole car, and it just ties the whole thing together. I think this model looks really good. You can see the paint scheme most on the side, and that has a nice black stripe that kind of goes down from the bottom and carries up. I think that looks really good, and right behind that you can see the number 2069 with a actually readable Ford logo and a small American flag. I like that little touch. You also have the readable Ford Performance little print, and I know I've been saying readable a bit, and that is because I think it's crazy that you can actually get that tiny of a detail on a little sticker on a Lego kit. Around the back / the top you can see that there is another 2069 number there along with the Ford Bronco logo, which is of course a Bronco, and you can also see some nice vent detail in a sticker there, and we also have some more vent detail on these side plates. Now while we're here, I really like how these side plates are angled, and that kind of helps you see the flared fenders at the bottom. I really love how this truck looks. Everything about it I think is done very well. And you can also see we have little taillights there. Now one of the cooler features and one of the biggest features of this truck is that you can actually use and take out the spare tires very easily, and you just do that by taking off the roof, which has this little retainer piece here that just kind of plugs into that and just keeps it in place, so that while the roof is on, you can shake this truck as much as you want and these tires are not coming out unless you take that roof off. Now you take that off and you can just lift out these tires. They're not attached by any studs or anything, and they have this little pattern on the back, which is the same for all 4 tires, or all 6 tires in this case. And you can see that those are kind of like little pockets that if you squish them, they kind of condense, and this one comes out as well to see this little cage around it. I think this looks great, and I really like that you can take those out very easily. Now inside the interior of the truck, one thing I really like about this model is the lack of a windshield. And for those of you that didn't know, actual trophy trucks or Baja trucks don't actually have windshields, which is part of the reason why the drivers wear helmets and why the drivers usually have their helmet visors down, is because dust flies in there and gets everywhere. Now you also have some nice blue roll cage details in there, and I really like how that looks. You can see that the A-pillars on here on this truck have little black pieces to represent them without having a windshield, and again I think that that is a very good thing that this model has, or doesn't have, I guess. And on the interior you can see that it does have a little bit of buttons beside the driver for the driver to use. I'm a little bummed that this kit didn't come with 3 figures so that the Ford Bronco could have both a driver and a co-driver. However, I think it's okay that it only has 2 because there are only 2 cars. Now you do have space for your co-driver if you want to add a secondary figure, and you can just plop back on the roof and go for a drive. Now for a look at our figures. Starting off with the one on the left, you can see that this is a female driver for the Ford Bronco R. You can see a little bit of dirt detail on her face, and I think that that is a nice little touch to have it so dirty. You also have a spare hairpiece if you want to use that instead of a helmet. However, I prefer to keep the helmets on so they're all ready to go. Now you also have a Sparco racing suit, which you can actually see the Sparco logo on the sides, and that is a nice little touch to see that it is actually a Sparco racing suit, not just a generic Lego racing suit. You can also see on the back that you have a Ford Bronco R logo on there with the red R just like the truck, and I think that this racing suit looks really nice. Going on to the other figure, this is a male figure with a nice tinted head visor piece, and I think that looks better than the non-tinted. However, that's just personal preference. You also have the colors of the car as stripes on his racing suit, which is kind of a vintage racing suit look, which I really like. You have the little Ford logo on there, and you also have the Ford logo on the back as well, and I really like that he has a nice vintage look to go with the Heritage Edition Ford GT. He also has a little hairpiece, and with that, let's go on to our overview. Altogether, this is an awesome kit. You get quite possibly the coolest Baja truck ever. That is the Ford Bronco R, and you get the Ford GT Heritage Edition in the Gulf color schemes. And I think that both of these are great models with some really cool details, especially the Bronco R with those tires in the back and all of its awesomeness, and the Ford GT Heritage Edition with its cool stripiness and all of the awesome features that it has. Now, with that said, if you want to pick yourself one of these kits, you can pick it up in the description below. We'll have a link there along with all of the other 2021 Speed Champions kits. Now, tune in next week. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on this video so that you can see this Toyota Supra next week. I'm so excited to build this thing, so be sure to watch the video. That is going to be awesome. But in the meantime, I will see you next time on another edition on Luclear Fusion.